Hey guys, Trail Chasers here. The UPS lost some parts for my common Sal, so for the time being I've been stuck on my downhill bike, and it's got me thinking, is it a viable option to have a downhill bike as your only bike? And at the end of the day, it's not a yes or no question. There's a lot of facts and consideration that you have to take in when dealing with one of these bikes. Let's first start by just thinking about the name. The name says a lot about the bike. It's a downhill bike. That's what it's made to do. It doesn't like to go up the hills, and it's not made to do that. The geometry, suspension, and drivetrain are all working against you. Let's take a look at my Kona operator really quick, for example. It has 200mm front and rear travel, a SRAM X9 drivetrain with a road cassette in the rear, and a 36-tooth chainring up front. The geometry is really slack with a 64-degree head angle. It does not like to pedal. While I could tough it out and pedal it or push it up stuff, it's really limited my options on where I can ride. I can't go to places like Tiger Mountain because that's thousands of feet of climbing, and I can't do that on a downhill bike. Lance Armstrong may be able to, but I don't think an average Joe really has it in him. It's not made to do that, and it's kind of taken away from riding with my friends because there's only so many places I can go ride. Stevens Pass is only open for me on the weekends, so that's the only place I can go to get lift. And other than that, I'm stuck at Duthie. I gotta push up all the hills, and it's not the most fun. I do really miss my trail bike. While it is a plausible option to put on a wider range cassette and possibly find a shock with the lockout for the rear, I really don't think it makes sense for a downhill bike, considering that's what it's made to do. At the end of the day, you're still having to deal with a heavy bike that's got geometry that's going to work against you, and it's never going to be built to pedal well since it's a downhill bike. So while you can do all you can, still at the end of the day, it does not like to pedal, and it only wants to go down. I think one way that you could actually justify having a downhill bike as your only bike is if you really only truly ride park and you tend to hop off the bike in the winter for something like skiing or snowboarding. I personally don't, so having just a downhill bike was never really an option for me because pushing a bike up a hill in winter when it's covered in mud is never fun. It's cold, your feet get really wet and soggy, and it's just not a good experience. So I think if you live really close to a bike park, it's a very plausible option to have, or if you're going to just ride it at a small place like Duthie. Duthie is another place that I think you could live with only a downhill or a freeride bike as an option. The trails are pretty short, they're easy little pushes up to the top, and there's nice, very slow gradients to climb up that you can actually make it up decently far on your downhill bike before you decide it's time to hike a bike. The other thing to consider with a downhill bike is if you plan to use it to ride trails with your friends or ride around town, it's going to be next to impossible to do that. You have to take into fact that these aren't really bikes you can pedal to a destination. They're a bike that you take to a destination and then ride there. So, for instance, I took my bike up to Stevens Pass. That was a 1.5 hour drive up. That was a $40 lift ticket, and then another 1.5 hour drive back. Along with food and gas, it ended up being around a $75 a day. So it's not very cheap to run these downhill bikes if you want to enjoy them. You can still enjoy them just hiking a bike and pushing up hills, but you have to keep in mind that these aren't really bikes that you're going to be riding to destinations or riding up hills with. These are bikes that really shine when they're thrown on a lift and you take a full day out of your time to go and ride these things. As far as mountain bikes are concerned, I think these are truly one-trick ponies. They're not going to go up hills no matter how bad you want it to. I've seen some builds around there where people have converted them to where they got lockouts and they pedal a little bit better, but I just don't think it's a viable option as an only bike if you really want to ride around trails with your friends or ride to the trail centers. I feel if you live close to a bike park, if you really like to only ride during lift season, or if you live near a little bike park that's just got little hills that you can push up, and it's a viable option for that. If those kind of tick your box, then I think you'd actually be okay living on just a downhill bike. I'm going to say that most people probably shouldn't. It's a very tough bike to manage as far as getting to places, keeping up with maintenance, and just overall usability, I think most people are much better off on a trail bike. But there are people out there that want something that's super beefy and they know they can keep up with the maintenance as far as pivots and stuff like that are concerned. They're not much more maintenance than a trail bike. You just have to watch over them because they do get beaten on during lift days. And I think if you're in that category of rider, then living on just a singular downhill bike is okay. At the end of the day, it's your decision, and whatever makes you happier, go for it. If you do want to push up the hill, get the downhill bike. It's fun. I'm not gonna lie. They're awesome to ride. Anyways, that's just my 2 cents on it. This has been Trail Chasers. If you guys could please like and subscribe, it helps me get motivation to make more videos for you guys that watch my videos. Anyways, I'll catch you guys out on the trails. Bye-bye.